Today, May 2nd, the atmosphere in El Paso feels different. The air is louder, heavier, filled with anticipation as thousands of fans gather, not just for a concert, but for a moment they've been waiting for. And right in the center of it all are Jungkook and Taehyung. What started as a simple stop in a global tour has quickly turned into something much bigger, something people are now calling one of the most emotional and unexpected highlights of BTS's return to the stage. Before we go deeper, make sure you stay until the end, because what Jungkook and Taehyung revealed today isn't just another interview moment. It's something that changes how fans are seeing this entire tour. And there's one detail near the end that most people completely missed. Earlier today, ahead of their major appearance in El Paso, Jungkook and Taehyung sat down for what many expected to be a standard interview. Nothing unusual. Just a quick conversation, some light questions, maybe a few laughs. But from the very first moments, fans watching closely could tell something felt different. Their expressions were calmer, more reflective. There was a quiet energy between them, like they were carrying something they hadn't fully shared yet. As the interview began, Taehyung spoke first, and instead of jumping into excitement about the performance, he paused. It wasn't long, just a second or two, but it was enough to create tension. He looked slightly off camera, smiled softly, and then said that being in El Paso felt unexpectedly emotional. That one word, emotional, instantly caught fans off guard. This wasn't the usual tone. Jungkook followed, and his response added even more weight. He mentioned how the past few shows had been intense, not just physically, but mentally. He didn't go into too much detail, but the way he said it made it clear that this tour isn't just about performing, it's about proving something, maybe even to themselves. Fans immediately connected this to previous moments where Jungkook had shown frustration with technical issues during earlier stops. But today, he didn't sound frustrated. He sounded focused. As the conversation continued, the chemistry between Jungkook and Taehyung became the center of attention. They weren't just answering questions, they were reacting to each other, finishing thoughts, occasionally laughing in a way that felt natural and unforced. It reminded fans why their dynamic has always been one of the most talked about in BTS. But then came a moment that shifted everything. When asked about what makes this stop in El Paso special, Taehyung gave a surprising answer. He didn't mention the size of the crowd or the scale of the event. Instead, he talked about the fans. He said that the energy here feels closer, like the distance between the stage and the audience doesn't exist. That comment alone started spreading quickly among fans because it hinted at something deeper, that this performance might be more personal than expected. Jungkook then added something that fans are still discussing right now. He said that every performance on this tour feels like a new beginning, but today feels like a turning point. He didn't explain what that meant. And that's exactly why it's become such a huge topic. What turning point? What changed today? Was it the crowd, the atmosphere, or something behind the scenes? Right in the middle of the interview, there was a brief pause as both of them looked at each other, almost as if deciding whether to say more. That silence lasted just a few seconds, but it created one of the most intense moments of the entire conversation. Taehyung smiled again, but this time it felt more emotional, and Jungkook nodded slightly before shifting the topic. They didn't elaborate. They left it there. And that's where the mystery begins. Fans who were watching live immediately started analyzing every detail. Some believe that the turning point Jungkook mentioned is connected to how the group is adjusting after their long hiatus. Others think it might be related to something happening behind the scenes during the tour itself. And then there are those who believe this moment was about something even more personal, something they're not ready to fully reveal yet. But the interview didn't end on a heavy note. Toward the end, the mood shifted again. Jungkook became more playful, joking about how intense the schedule has been, while Taehyung teased him lightly, bringing back a sense of familiarity that fans love. It was a reminder that even in serious moments, their bond remains strong. Still, that earlier tension didn't disappear. It stayed in the background, giving the entire interview a layered feeling, part excitement, part reflection, and part something unspoken. Now here's the part that most people missed. At the very end of the interview, just before the cameras cut, Jungkook quietly said something that wasn't part of the main conversation. It was almost off mic, but clear enough for careful listeners. He said, "Let's make tonight unforgettable." It sounds simple, but combined with everything else, the tone, the pauses, the hints, it feels like a promise. Not just to the fans, but to themselves. And if you think about it, that line changes how you see everything that came before. Because this isn't just another stop on a tour. This is a moment where Jungkook and Taehyung seem to be redefining what this comeback means. Not just performing, not just showing up, but creating something that leaves a lasting impact. As fans prepare for the performance later tonight, the expectations are higher than ever. Not because of the scale, not because of the production, but because of what was felt in that interview. Something is building. Something is shifting. So the real question now is not what they said, but what they're about to show. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a regular update. Keep watching, stay tuned, and pay attention to every moment tonight, because what happens next might be one of the most talked about performances of this entire tour. And as the hours moved closer to the performance, the energy around El Paso only continued to rise. Fans who had watched that interview started to gather outside the venue earlier than expected, many of them replaying the same clips, trying to decode every small expression, every pause, every glance between Jungkook and Taehyung. It wasn't just about what was said anymore, but how it was said. The tone, the timing, the subtle shifts in their voices, everything felt intentional, or at least meaningful enough to question. What made this moment even more compelling is how rare it is to see both of them in such a reflective state at the same time. Jungkook, who is often known for his determination and perfectionism, seemed slightly more open, almost as if he wanted fans to understand that this journey hasn't been easy. Taehyung, on the other hand, carried a calm but emotional presence, the kind that doesn't need many words to be felt. When those two energies meet, it creates something powerful, and that's exactly what fans witnessed today. Behind the scenes, there's also a growing sense that this tour stop is being treated differently by the group. Not in a way that's obvious or officially stated, but in the small details, the way they speak, the way they prepare, the way they interact with the audience even before stepping on stage. It gives the impression that El Paso is not just another city on the list, but a moment they want to remember. Some fans have even pointed out that this could be one of those turning points that only becomes clear in hindsight. The kind of moment that, months from now, people will look back on and say, that's when something changed. Whether it's their confidence as performers, their connection as a group, or the way they communicate with fans, there's a feeling that this is part of a bigger story that's still unfolding. And as night approaches, one thing becomes certain: whatever happens on that stage will carry the weight of everything that was left unsaid in that interview. Every lyric, every movement, every interaction will be watched more closely than ever before. Because now, fans aren't just expecting a performance. They're expecting answers, emotions, and maybe even a continuation of the story that Jungkook and Taehyung quietly began earlier today.